Hey guys, so I wanted to tell you guys about my experience taking my NHA phlebotomy exam, because I promised you guys that I was gonna walk through this whole step with you, or this whole journey step by step with you. Excuse me. Um, anyways, so going into the test, what I did was, um, well, actually, I'm gonna make a separate video talking about preparing to take your NHA exam and all that, because I feel like that needs its own video. Because I mean, there's a lot that I could try to explain to you guys if you are doing phlebotomy classes and you're gonna take your NHA exam. Um, I can kind of talk more about that in a separate video. So then, if you want specific tips and information on how I studied to take the NHA exam, then you can just watch that video, and it'll give you more in depth information. But this is more like just my experience taking the NHA phlebotomy exam. Um, so basically, we went to class. And it was technically not a class day because not everybody in our class passed the class. Um, there were some people who, on the day that we took the final exam, they didn't pass, or they didn't get a high enough percentage on the final exam to be able to pass the class as a whole. So they were not able to take their NHA exam. But the people who were able to take their NHA exam, we showed up. We practiced with butterfly needles for about, I want to say maybe 45 minutes to an hour. It definitely wasn't longer than an hour. Um, and then after we were done practicing with the butterfly needles, we took our NHA exam. Now, it kind of drives me nuts that we practiced with butterfly needles before our NHA exam, because my nerves were through the roof. And I just I didn't know what to expect. And our instructor, the way that she had been talking about the questions and how the exam was going to be, kind of freaked me out a little, because she was making it sound like it was extremely intimidating. And I did a whole bunch of different types of practice tests from different websites just in order to try to prepare myself enough for this exam. And honestly, I feel like no matter what I would have done to try to prepare for this exam, I don't think that anything can really prepare you for some of these certification exams. Obviously, nerves are at a high, but we took our exam on paper and pencil. So there's a lot of people who take their NHA on the computer. My school decided that we were going to take it on paper and pencil because they feel like it's better to take it on paper and pencil and then have to wait for the results instead of taking it on the computer. Because if you take it on paper and pencil, in your test booklet, where the questions are, obviously not on the answer sheet, in your test booklet, if it's asking you a question about order of draw, then you can literally write down the order of draw if you need to, because you can write anywhere in your test booklet. You just can't write anywhere on the answer sheet, obviously. And when you do the paper and pencil test, I will tell you, if you do the paper pencil version, it's like one of those standardized tests when you're in high school, where you have to fill in all the little bubbles and all of that stuff. It's on a Scantron sheet. And you do have to wait a little bit longer than, say, someone who took it on the computer, who may be able to get their results that same day or the next day. Although I will tell you, I got my results. Let's see, I took my exam on Tuesday and got my results on Thursday. And that was after my school had to FedEx out the tests, the answer sheets and everything. And obviously I live in Indiana, and they had to FedEx the tests to Kansas because that's where the NHA is based, I guess, in Leavenworth, Kansas, I think it is. I'm not going to tell you my results. I am going to make a separate video about that. This is just talking about my experience. with the NHA test. I was very, very intimidated. I do feel like my class didn't necessarily prepare us totally. Um, and the only reason why I say that is because a lot of us got OSHA related questions that we never talked about. Um, and the reason why I say that is because, like, we talked about what OSHA is and kind of the purposes of OSHA, like why they do what they do, but we never talked about like how to handle specific situations. Like, for example, I will tell you one of the questions like that was on my test, and it was, you are working in the lab and there's a large spill of venous blood. How would you clean it up? And there were all of these, like, there were 4 choices that you could choose from. And we never went over anything like that. We never went over like how to clean up a spill of blood in the lab. I don't know if that's just our instructor not really teaching us those types of things because she thought maybe it would be something we didn't really need to know for the NHA and something that we would learn like when we got our jobs or whatever. But I feel like if that's the case, then I feel like we weren't exactly prepared correctly. However, I do feel like I was prepared to know most of the information that I needed to know for the NHA. I will tell you, don't freak out about order of draw. Just know, like, have a general knowledge of the order of draw. Don't freak out because as long as you know your order of draw basically, then you'll be fine. Because they only ask like a couple of questions about order of draw. I think I had 3 in total, and only one of those was about like, I honestly don't think any of the questions on my NHA exam had anything to do with tube colors. Maybe one. I think it was one, and that was about like a red top tube with no additive in it. So, yeah. But other than that, it was like, it was going off of the additive names, not the tube colors. So I will include that information in my tips video for like how to study for the NHA. But I feel like you need to kind of study different things. I had a lot of specimen processing type questions on my NHA exam. Not so much order of draw. I feel like most of the exam focused on specimen processing, point of care testing, and like what you would do in certain situations. Like I had a lot of scenario questions on my exam, and I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing because working as a CNA, I feel like it kind of helped having my CNA experience because I just thought about like, what would I do if I was a CNA in this situation? You know, not necessarily saying that you have to be a CNA to know the information that they're asking, because you should learn that as part of your class or as part of your CPR class, but some of the questions are a little confusingly worded, if that makes sense. I would just say, like, I felt extremely stressed out. After taking the exam, I was the second person done with the exam, and I felt like I finished way too quickly. I felt like my exam was way too easy compared to my classmates, because my classmates were saying that their exams were super hard. I don't know. I don't know if anybody like in my class, I don't know if any of the other girls passed because I don't really have them on Facebook or anything. I have 2 girls' numbers, and one of the girls didn't pass the class, so she didn't take the exam. So I don't know. But I'm glad that the exam is over with. And like I said, I will make a separate video talking about my results and all of that. So I will also talk in that video about what is next, what I'm going to do from here. So I guess you'll have to wait and see to find out what is going on. That was just my experience with the NHA exam. Like I said, if you are interested in more specific tips, like how to do well in your phlebotomy class, how to do well with phlebotomy clinicals, and things like that, I can make those videos too. Obviously, I am a CNA, but I'm also a phlebotomist because I did finish my class. In the state of Indiana, you can work for a year without having your national certification. But once that year is over, they want you to take your certification test. So that's basically it. I just wanted to share with you guys about my experience. I also forgot to bring a pencil. Who forgets to bring a pencil to a paper pencil test? And my school did not provide us with pencils, just so you know. I had to beg one of my classmates to let me borrow a pencil, and she literally went and searched through her car to find a pencil for me because otherwise I would not have been able to take my NHA test. So thank you, Allie, for letting me borrow a pencil. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about my experience taking the NHA exam. If you guys are going to take a phlebotomy class or are thinking about it, let me know. I would be interested to see how many of you guys are interested in phlebotomy or like learning more about what phlebotomy is, what phlebotomists do. I would definitely like to share more about phlebotomy on my channel. If that's something that you guys are interested in. And I do plan on transitioning from CNA work to phlebotomy work, although I will probably do a little bit of both, at least for the foreseeable future. So stay tuned to my channel to see what happens with that. And of course, you guys will be the first to know whenever I decide to either move up and do something else besides phlebotomy, because eventually I will go and get another degree or another certification. But you know, this is just kind of advancing me past CNA because I feel like CNA is good and you know, you can do a lot with a CNA certification, but I feel like it's too much for me. And you guys know, like I've talked about it in other videos, that I just can't handle CNA work anymore physically because of my MS. So yeah, hopefully this is opening brand new doors for me, and I would love to get back into the hospital setting as a phlebotomist. So I've been applying for different jobs, and you guys will be the first to know whenever I get a phlebotomy job. So yeah, stay tuned. I hope you guys are excited to follow along with me on this new journey that I'm on, and stay tuned for the videos talking about like my tips for studying for the NHA and how I studied for the NHA, and also whether or not I passed. So stay tuned for those videos, and I will talk to you guys again in my next video.